Hey everybody, what is going on out there? Welcome, one and all. Whether you are live with us right now, watching this later on YouTube, whatever have you, welcome to Wrestling with Whiskey Weekly. That was probably a terrible title to change, a terrible title to make. It is an absolute mouthful. But regardless, we are here. We are live on YouTube. This is something I wanted to do because I don't know, as I've gotten more into this, I like really doing the live thing, going live, interacting with people, getting that direct feedback. It also allows me to keep up on the latest news much easier. So that's something that I look forward to. So please, each and every week, subscribe. Not subscribe every week, but subscribe so each and every week, bring your questions, bring your thoughts, bring your concerns, whatever you want to know or whatever you're interested in, bring them right here. Follow on, over here, there we go. Follow on the socials right over there at the bottom of the page there as well, and we will get back to you. So welcome everyone to Wrestling with Whiskey Weekly. I hope you're all doing good. I hope you all have a drink in your hands. If you've got something, please hit it up in the chat. Drop me what you are sipping on. If you checked our social medias earlier today, you know I will be sipping on some Woodinville Bourbon. Finally, was something that I was able to get my hands on. It's been around here for a little while, but it's finally showing up regularly on the store shelf. And I've heard so many good things about it, and I wanted to finally dive in and get it. I know they've been doing a lot of cool things. So that'll be coming a little bit later in the review corner. But for now, let's talk a little bit about the news of what's going on. I just received this. So apparently Buffalo Trace, the infamous Buffalo Trace, right? Home of brands such as Eagle Rare, of course, Buffalo Trace, Stag and Stag Jr., the whole Weller lineup, as well as distilling for Pappy Van Winkle, amongst several other brands. They are in the middle of a $1.2 billion expansion. $1.2 billion in the middle of this pandemic. So if that tells you a little bit about what the whiskey industry is going through, or how they're handling this whole thing, it gives you a little bit of a clearer idea. So good for them. Some of the things I'm going to read directly from the press release here. $1.2 billion. I mean, God, we're all looking to make our first 100K, and they're spending $1.2 billion. Infrastructure is the primary thing. So they have 4 new 22-foot tall cookers. And that's what cooks the mash. That's what helps everything get distilled. So you got more of those. You're going to be making a lot more whiskey. And that is something Buffalo Trace has struggled to do, is keep up with demand. Or at least that's the story that they've told us. And that's why everything is so allocated and so hard to find. Which, to be fair, I do understand. And we'll get a little bit more to that later. So they have 4 new cookers. That gives an extra 80,000 gallons of cooking capacity. They also had 4 new fermenters to go with those, so that's where the mash goes after it's cooked. It goes and sits and ferments, as well as a $50 million bottling hall, which was completed last year. It's 110,000 square feet and will help them get things out of the barrel, into the bottles, and out into stores. Hopefully the idea being faster. And as well as 3 new warehouses. And we know Buffalo Trace has a lot of warehouses. That's one thing that they have going. And they're building more all the time. I feel like I'm hearing this all the time from places like Heaven Hill, from Beam. The warehouse game, they're really trying to up it. And so Buffalo Trace in particular has fallen prey, or not prey, but on many people's ire, because their products are so hard to get. And then they make these, they've been building, they've been adding warehouses, they've been adding rick houses, they've been expanding their product line. We see about 600 new Wellers every single year, it seems like. And so people are like, well, if they're doing all that, why can't they keep up? And I get it. I'm a little frustrated with them too, because the amount of capacity they have, even before this 1.2 billion, I hate that I keep saying that, $1.2 billion expansion is kind of crazy. But if you really think about it, I mean, that's the problem with whiskey. It takes a long time to catch up. I mean, we're talking things like Weller and Pappy 10 years ago were relatively easy to find. But think about the youngest Pappy Van Winkle family member is 10 years old. So if they were just now, if they were anticipating this kind of hype, which even in 2010, I don't know, people could see what was going to happen in 2016, 17, 18, not to that degree. So they have now, if they saw that hype, they would just now be catching up on the youngest possible line of the Pappy Van Winkle lineup. So, and then even standard Buffalo Trace or things like Weller Special Reserve or 107 are in that 6, 7, 8 year range. So again, when the bourbon boom really, really took off was only a couple of years ago. So they are now catching up. They're getting, companies that are putting out 4 or 5, 6 year products are just starting to catch up if they ramped up when that whole boom happened. So as much as it pains me, and I'm sure some of you, I understand why, especially with things like Blanton's. I can't believe I forgot Blanton's at the first of it. And the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection, things like that have just been, with the whole boom, have been gotten so popular, they haven't been able to catch up, despite the huge capacity of Buffalo Trace. So hopefully with this, they've had time to build, they're building out, and they're going to, Lord knows, they're going to continue to build and do more and more and more. So in the next 2-3 years, we might see a little bit of Weller. Oh my God, I know. Blanton's. They added Blanton's Gold to the gift shop exclusive. So are we going to start seeing Blanton's Gold on the shelf in 2-3 years? Let's hope it's sooner than that. What's going on? I just want to say a quick hello before I move on to the next topic. Quick hello to everybody in the chat, everybody who's tuning in live. Thank you guys so much for joining me on my little test show here. Just wanted to see if the technology works, if you guys will show up, if you guys will be here. I know it'll grow, because that's what this is all about, especially in today's day and age. We're all kind of stuck. There's not a ton to do or a ton of places to go right now. So let's all join each other when we can. I realize that 7 p.m. on a Wednesday, Central here, may not be a good time for some of my wrestling audience, so I'll take a look at that. But thank you guys for being in the chat. Please let me know if you have any questions as we're going here. I'd be happy to answer them, because we are here to talk whiskey. You know what I mean? We are wrestling with whiskey every single day. Except, moving on to our next topic, some people are not. Because some people are trying to invent, not even invent, but perfect the non-alcoholic spirit. And if you're like me and you're thinking, what in the blue hell is a non-alcoholic spirit? Well, there's a couple of women in Kentucky who are trying to figure out just that and are trying to bring it to your shelf. I'll pull up a little bit of that press release too. It's amazing. There we go. Just had to find it. What people can do, what technology can do to us, and do for us in a lot of, I don't know, like interesting new ways. People are taking this bourbon boom, this whiskey boom, and doing it beyond just collecting expensive or fancy whiskeys. No. People are doing all kinds of things with cocktails and already bottled cocktails, barrel-aged cocktails, mixers, flavors, all kinds of things. It's a fascinating time for the spirits industry. And so, reading from an interview they did with the Whiskey Wash, the people by Spiritless. This is the name of the company that's producing some new non-alcoholic spirits, Spiritless, out of Louisville, Kentucky. Their non-alcoholic bourbon is Kentucky 74. And so I was reading this interview with them, and I love that it's a woman-owned company too, because we need to see more of that. That kind of a thing is something that, especially in the whiskey industry, would be really, really helpful to see more and more of. Diversity, minority ownership or leadership, female ownership or leadership of brands. I love seeing that in companies like Uncle Nearest with Fawn Weaver. So we want to see, I'm just speaking out of my own ass, pardon my French, but I want to see more and more of that. Especially in something that was traditionally, I think a lot of people would say, a white dude's industry. And don't get me wrong, those white dudes gave us some incredible products, but it's great to see a lot of different people jumping into this amazing industry. And so, talking more about it, so Spiritless Kentucky 74, they're not trying, you can read, they've done several interviews and everything, but basically what I love about them is their approach is very interesting. They're not trying to make, let's call it a Diet Coke, right? They're not trying to make you something you'll drink instead of bourbon. I think they know better than that. And they even go as far to say that in their interview that for the people who are drinking whiskey neat on a regular basis, they're not probably going to be sipping this non-alcoholic Kentucky 74 neat, or even with ice. So their approach is really interesting in that they're trying to use it as something to either proof down a spirit, or what I think is really interesting, to lower the ABV of cocktails, which I know to many of you out there are probably like, why on earth would I want to lower the ABV of cocktails? But if you think about it, it's great from both not only a public health and safety issue, but also from a business standpoint. And again, they pretty much go on to say as much in this society that's very well concerned with wellness and health, Generation Z and the younger generation, and even mine. Am I Generation Z? I'm Generation Drama King. I don't know what the hell I am. But our whole, under 30 or even into the mid 30s are very into the health and wellness, drinking generally less. This guy not included. Generally drinking less. And so the alcohol consumption is overall down for the younger generation. So this is something that might appeal to them. But I love it because when you go out to dinner, maybe, especially if you have I want to pick a higher proof whiskey if I'm making an old fashioned. Maybe 100 proof, maybe 110. And so instead of having one, maybe two of those, now if I split my whiskey in half, maybe an ounce of the bourbon and an ounce of this spiritless, now, not that I'm condoning, maybe you have 3 or 4 cocktails at dinner. And now the restaurant is able to charge you for 3. Hopefully I haven't seen price points, but not be a lot more expensive to add this in a cocktail. If anything, it might be a little bit cheaper. So instead of paying $12, $14 at a nice restaurant for a cocktail, maybe you're spending $8, $9. But then you're buying 3 or 4 instead of 1 or 2. Now the restaurant business can make more. The bartending business can make more. A high quality mocktail, that's obviously been a growing industry. And what I want to draw your attention is they do talk in this interview a little bit about how they make it. And it's really, really fascinating because what they do is they're not doing like a mash bill tradition. They take grain neutral spirit and they're mixing it with essentially extracted oak of different char levels. So, level 2 char, level 4 char, level 3 char. And they're mixing that together in kind of what it sounds like. Again, this is just my interpretation. Almost like a TerraPure process. They're whipping that together at super, super high proof. So way higher than even normal distillate coming off of a classic whiskey still. Which I think is interesting. And then they basically go through reverse distillation and they remove the ethanol. And what you're left with is essentially the flavor components of bourbon, but without that ethanol, without that alcohol. Problem is, ethanol is obviously what keeps it shelf stable, and so they say they have added a little bit of cane sugar and a little bit of citric acid to keep it, and apparently it can stay open on a shelf for 12 months, which if it's something you're using in cocktails, you're probably mixing that on the regular. So whether it's in a bar, a restaurant, or on your own home shelf, that should be interesting. So I don't know. we'll all have to make our own judgments on it. I know if I see it, it's spiritless. Out of Louisville, Kentucky. The product is Kentucky 74. Again, a woman-owned and operated business. I love that. And it should be something that's going to be very interesting, especially to the cocktail industry. So, just like our chatter kayfabe photo, proof is in the pudding. You know, it's all, at the end of the day, it's going to be put up or shut up time. And you have to taste it. Because that's one thing about this. It's all about what you taste for yourself. So I'm interested in trying it. I know some of you guys are. We'll see. I think it's a good thing overall. But let's get to the cream of the crop today. We're going to finish up with our review corner. So let's jump on over there. Boom. Hey, here we go. So as you guys can see, am I pointing in the right direction? With my silly green screen technology. We are looking at Woodinville, and I'll even bring it right up here. There we go. See, there's the real thing. Woodinville Straight Bourbon Whiskey. I've heard so many good things about this. Out of Washington State, and what I love, again, before they released their primary product, they distilled it, aged it themselves. They did things in the meantime to make money, and then they waited until they had a great product. This product is apparently about 4 years old. It is not age stated, but as it doesn't have an age statement, that means it's got to be at least 4 years old if you're following the letter of the law, which, as we know, a lot of people don't do that. I've seen a lot of spirits that are absolutely, like, without a doubt, they're 2 years old, or maybe 3, and there's no age statement on it, and I don't know how they're getting around that. But, and we know this product's, the last interview I heard with Woodinville, let's pour it in here. They said their current product on the shelf, which I just picked this up, is at least 4 years, and probably, depending on where you live, the product is probably close to that 5-year range right now. And so 5 years for a bourbon, and I will say in Chicago, Illinois, at the grocery store, that's one thing, that's how you know you got some pretty good distribution. If you're at the grocery store and not like a specialty whiskey or liquor shop, then you got a pretty good reach, or at least the Illinois distributor has a pretty good reach. But you can see right there, the color is pretty fantastic. Like I said, 4 or 5 years old. And again, on the grocery store shelf, $36 plus tax would have came out less than $40 though, with tax out the door. For a craft, younger, whiskey, not younger whiskey, the younger company overall, that's pretty good. And I think they've been around altogether for about 10 years. That's a business. But the whiskey has only been around for a few years. So $35, they're not charging $60, $70, $80, something like that. I really, really like that. So color is beautiful. Let's take a whiff. That's nice. So there is a note of corn on there for sure. But it's not bad. Like, there's a lot of really young bourbons, especially when they're in that 2-year range. The corn in it is it's harsh. It's not super mellow yet. It gives it that sweetness, but it's still pretty harsh. Here I've got to say, mixed with some really nice black pepper notes, super strong vanilla. Oh, the corn in here, while noticeable, much more so than something that's maybe 6 or 8 years old. It gives it this almost, this is going to sound really weird to people who are like, don't drink whiskey, but like almost like a buttered popcorn, which I know because it's corn, so that kind of makes sense, but it's like this sweet, sugary popcorn on the nose. And it's a weird thing to get in whiskey, but it's not a bad thing. Cheers, everybody. So a little bit, see, like it's got that initial bite of youth. Again, corniness, something I know about. But also, just a little bit of graininess in there. Not too much though. Not too much at all. Graininess, corniness. But there is this complexity, there's a depth to it that you wouldn't expect from a newer brand. I keep saying newer. I know they've been around for a few years, but they haven't been in the ethos, the lexicon of bourbon for too long. But I do know they were recently acquired by, I believe, by Moet Chandon, right? See, our good friend Bryce Simpson is in the chat. He works with those fine people, and they were acquired, and so that might be why some of the distribution has grown, and we've seen it a lot more here and is widely available on the grocery store shelf, like I was saying. And I'm seeing it in more states as it goes along. So they're doing a really great job of expanding. So if this is not in your area, I have no doubt that it will be soon. But yeah, especially when you let a little bit of air get in here, a little bit of time, smooths out some of those harsher, really strong, peppery notes, but it's become such an easy pour. Again, the corn shows through, but it's mellowed out enough. It's hit that just a good point where it had, again, I'm getting popcorn kind of again, this almost buttery, rich corn flavor that's not overly overtaking anything. It's kind of just, it's resting right in there. Finish is still, so-so. It's not quite super lasting, but that's to be expected with something less than 6 years old. There's a nice pepperiness, a little bit of leather, and just almost a hint, and I think it's the corn, almost like maltiness, but just teeny tiny bit. But yeah, so that's Woodinville Straight Bourbon Whiskey. I also know that they've started doing things like single barrel. They have done some single barrel selections. They started doing some finishing using some things like port barrels. I know they have a rye as well, which I believe they also do finishing with. They finish their ryes as well. Brian's asking, how does this compare to other things in the price range? So this is in that $30 to $40 price range. I mean, to me, I think this is one of those, because if you look at the other things in that category, there's some heavy hitters in that category. You got things like Eagle Rare. Depending on where you can find it, there's Stag Junior, but that's usually closer to 50. New Riff is another brand in a similar boat. That's kind of a younger company, been around a little bit, but they've got a 4-year product out. And that's pretty highly regarded. They're usually right at the top there, $39.99 or so. New Riff and this are very different. I think this has a little bit more maturity than something like that. So for me, if it were over 50, it'd be a little tough to kind of really recommend it. But man, depending on where you find it, it's probably gonna be $35 to $40. I think that's worth a pickup. to me. If you are a whiskey fan already and you're like, hey, you've got your Evan Williams, you've got your Wild Turkey, you've got your Buffalo Trace, whatever it is, and you're a whiskey fan, this is worth it. You see it in the store, this is worth a pickup for sure. 90 proof, classic, bourbon whiskey proof, just enough to get you that flavor, but it's not going to punch you in the face. I can't wait to see what they do, maybe at 100 proof. I would love to taste this at barrel proof if they ever do it. Woodinville, if you're listening, give us a limited cask strength. I got friends in Washington. They'll send me some, even if it's distillery only or something like that. But also, it's good wine country out there, so I'd be curious to try their wine finished bourbons and whiskeys as well. So this fits right in there to me in that price range. You're competing with certain Old Forester products, but even that, like the Old Forester's bottled and bond 1897 is closer to that $45-50. You know what I mean? Again, there's a lot of companies. Clifford in the chat, just bringing it up. Wilderness Trail, same thing, but Wilderness Trail I find is a little bit more expensive than I've seen. I think it's more between $40 and $50. So it just really depends. Eric in here. There you go. So they're doing picks at 120, or are they doing them at barrel? Either picks are at barrel proof or at 120, or maybe it depends on the pick. I don't know, Eric, but I would love to get my hands on one of those. This is this is I got this, Wes. I got this at Jewel Osco in the city. So this is, I think it's at Benny's, it's at Arminetti's, it's at pretty much most liquor stores around here that I've seen it. But New Riff is everywhere I've seen it is $39.99. Picks are closer to $50, but this is $36, $38. That's $39. We're talking about a difference of $5 maybe. So those are two of my favorite kind of up and coming, smaller craft, but not such craft distilleries. So anyway, I don't want to get too elongated. Woodinville Straight Bourbon Whiskey. If you see it, you're a whiskey fan, I would say pick it up. If you're not sure how you feel about whiskey yet, this is definitely something. If you see it on a menu at a bar or a restaurant, give it a try. I think this will make a great, neat pour for somebody who's new. I think it's sweet, and what I love about this, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, is that those corn flavors give you a nice baseline for the basic ingredients of bourbon, right? It's a corn-based whiskey, at least 51% corn. And so this, you can actually taste the corn. A lot of things that are older or higher proof, it's hard to really taste the corn. I should get that on a t-shirt. Taste the corn. Or corniness. But I highly recommend you pick it up or check it out in some way, shape, or form. But anyway, guys, that's it for today. That's the first episode, in, out, quick. I'll be doing more shows with interviews and Q&As and things like that. We're going to get more involved. This was the first of many, the debut episode. Hopefully we'll be doing many more of these. I'm hoping to have a guest potentially next week. So stay tuned to all my social medias. I'll switch back over. Stay tuned to those social medias. Wrestling with Whiskey on Instagram. Wrestle Whiskey on Twitter. I will always update you on who's going to show up, what we're going to talk about, what is going to happen. So thank you guys very, very much. Always be trying out new things. Be reading about the industry. Checking out new brands. And always, always, always be wrestling with whiskey. Thank you guys very much, and we will see you next week on Wrestling with Whiskey Weekly. Peace.